Um, I don't talk this way. I think somebody figured it out and just randomly called the police and then wanted to yell at me at the same time about why it's not okay for them to describe themselves as working in a place when they're not actually working. I mean, demographically speaking, according to statistics, unemployment is the biggest factor into unhappiness and an individual. I mean, one of the biggest factors into somebody's health and social stability, financial stability a lot to do with their employment, and unemployment is a very big sign that person's not doing so well. Okay, not that everybody has to be employed to be a valid and valued member of society, but unemployment and rising unemployment rates is a bad news for a specific region, especially in a country. It means something is going wrong. Um, so what is unemployment? Unemployment or this is what people mean when they say unemployment. Chronic unemployment or inability to hold down a career or an extended length of job for a period of time. So unemployment refers to persons who have never been employed or their employment didn't last more than 3 or 4 months in total. Those are unemployed. Okay, those when that's what people refer, that's what they mean when they say unemployed. Excuse me. They don't mean people who are laid off, people looking for a new job. Those are also within the unemployed category because they're technically not working at the moment. But when people talk about unemployment and rising unemployment rates, they mean rising amounts of populations that aren't actively have worked or are eligible for work, otherwise known as unemployed. um, I mean, I think I read up about some like articles in Japan where this was a problem. They're called NEETs, not in employment, education, or training, and they have a hard time leaving their house. They stay at home all day. They don't do anything, etc., etc., and they have no desire to do so. That's the problem. They have no desire to go outside, no desire to go look for a job, no desire to like, even if they could, they don't need to. They don't want to, or they don't think that they need to or anything. Like they don't understand how negatively it's impacting them. Now, if you're currently like out of work, I wouldn't really consider those types of people unemployed. That's not what they're talking about when they say unemployed. Even though you're technically unemployed at the moment. When people say unemployment within statistical research data and stuff like that, yeah, that's what they're talking about. People who are not in Japan, they are talking about people needs. When they say unemployed, they mean everyone who's currently not working and they're not in employment, education, or training, otherwise not occupying their time wisely or efficiently in an effort to improve the society or be part of society at large. Again, that's in Japan. Their cultural and legal and societal systems are different there than in America. In America, when people say unemployed, they mean people who have never held down a job for a significant period of time or never had a job and never had any training background or vocational background or any sort of education. So students don't fall in the category of unemployed, but if you graduate and you have a degree and you no longer have any work experience outside of like you have no work experience, you just have a degree, that's still considered unemployed. Like if your total amount of work in your entire life on your resume is less than 6 months, then that means that you are currently considered unemployed. That is why it's bad. Don't try to convince other people that you're not unemployed. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do, is to lie to other people and say that you don't have a job. Right? Like, just say, no, I mean, lie to other people when you don't have a job. Sorry. When you say, like, I don't have a job or I'm unemployed, that's fine. Like, people need to know that kind of stuff if they're getting into a relationship like that with you. Oh, he's unemployed. That's what that was. That weird pervert who stole my underwear. He's unemployed. He's never had a job. Oh my god. And not never had a job. He's unemployed. What? I have no idea he was unemployed. I was like, what do you mean you're unemployed? Like, you never had a... What happened to all the jobs that you were working? Like, was there something wrong with the company? Or, like, did you fuck up or something? I just don't... What is it? What? It cannot compute. Does not compute, rather. Like, what the fuck is that? What are you talking about? Sorry, I shaved my armpits. I didn't shave. I'm very French today. It's great because there's a whole... It's bilingual in Canada, okay? English and French. I'm very, like, appreciating the French side or whatever. People get into depression when they visit France, Paris for the first time, and Paris. And they're like, oh, I thought, France was this, like, really great and amazing and like romantic country, but it's so dirty and disease ridden and like it's just a shithole. It's like a sewer. And I'm like, yeah, France is like the butthole of Europe, okay? Like, I don't know why anybody thinks it's fancy. Hello, they eat moldy cheese, like moldy milk, call it cheese, and expired grape juice called wine. Their seasoning's really fresh though, but if it's not fresh then you can't eat it. Except for their expired fruit juices and their dairy products. Like, I don't understand how that's helpful, but okay. It's actually not healthy to eat cheese all the time. Kind of. I mean, if you eat nothing but cheese, it's fine. You can't eat anything else. Just eat cheese. But yeah, anyway, regarding those things that are happening, I mean, this swimming swimsuit I'm wearing as a bodysuit fits, but like, it's made for people who have like really no like boobage or like any sort of curves whatsoever. And I'm like, is that what you think of women who wear size small? Because that's discriminatory. Also, nothing really fits me properly here. It gets really annoying sometimes. Yeah, I forgot in Asia the sizes don't work like it does in America. Yeah, so that's what people mean by unemployed, and I was like, I didn't know what they were talking about. I just realized that that's what that is unemployment. It's, you need to hold on a job for at least over 6 months that you can put on your resume and show to other employers that you were capable of working for that period of time. And if the thing is, other employers, even if your previous employers lie about you or whatever, they can tell how the company's doing. They're not stupid, okay? If they call them, or they might have heard rumors about that company, and they get an employee applying for a different company, and they're like, wait, you used to work for those guys? And I was like, yeah, they fired me, like, I think it was illegal, but anyway, I need a job. And then they're like, wait, that's a little weird. They're like, yeah, we heard stuff about those guys. That's weird. Yeah, that's what that's like. I think that's called office politics, honestly. But, yeah, what else? My computer broke, but it's designed to break, so it doesn't damage the internal hardware, which is the important part. The external plastic part, I just figured out, it's designed to absorb all the shock, so it breaks, but it won't damage any of the internal workings of the computer, and it protects the actual, like, important part. So, like, the motherboard and the chips and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's supposed to be a swimsuit, okay? I don't know what happened. It's cause of my boobs, man! I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, and also the foster dad, he has schizophrenia. I thought the foster mom had schizophrenia. It turns out she does. She has some sort of personality disorder, as well as Tiffany. I actually don't have a personality disorder, and I think a lot of people. They actually had to talk to the doctor who treated me, and he said no, that's not what she was talking about. And I think any doctor could have like they could tell that's not what I was talking about. But they're like, that's how she talks. Like that's just kind of the way. It's like a dialect. I don't know. I think it's an English dialect. The way I talk. It's just weird because it's where I learned English. So maybe a lot of people had a hard time understanding me because there's a dialect or an accented difference. And they didn't learn that kind of English. They learned a different dialect of English, or like rather, try to learn without dialects. I don't know which dialect it's from. Because I actually went to school near this town called Wimbledon. It's like 2 or 3 hours away from London, which is quite far in England. So, Wimbledon is like famous for their tennis stuff, right? So like, yeah, that's where I learned my English. I don't know if it like really matters, but like I guess that's where the dialect's from. That like region of England. It's like a little south. Not really. A little more north. I have no idea. I don't know. It's a dialect apparently. It's like a stylistic way, a variant of speaking English. But that's how English people speak. So I don't understand why people didn't understand me. I'm like, it's really easy to comprehend. It's not really like a different language. I do speak Korean, but it's so dialect. Yeah, in Korea there's a dialect. It's a main city dialect. It's like an accent, but not really. Yeah, it's kind of hard to learn, but I was born there and I was like raised there for a period of time, so I have that dialect. I mean, people think that Korea's like, you make it sound so country, they say, but it's kind of like a regional dialect. It's like every city has one. Like you have a Londoner's accent. You got like the Norfolk accent. You got the what is it? What other cities are there? There's a bunch, honestly. There's a bunch of different accents. Like in Korea, there's a Busan dialect, there's a Jeju dialect, there's a Seoulshi dialect. Seoulshi means Seoul City. Yeah. It's like that in every country. You go to any country and you'll find out that each city and each region has their own dialect or accent. It's kind of how people talk from that area when they're born there. It's so funny. They couldn't understand that's what I was saying, and I was like, that's literally what that is, what everybody said. They're like, yeah, that's what she's saying. It's like, how do you not understand English? I forgot they're not actually English. They're actually, I don't know, majority of them aren't English. Like, ethnically speaking, they're not from England. Some of them are, they're like part British. So like, maybe one grandparent or one great-grandparent was English. But like it's like a mix now, or like they're predominantly like Dutch, but like they have one pair of grandparents who are English, but like rest of their family was Dutch or something like that, or like they're French, but they have like one English grandparent, but everyone else in their family is French. That kind of stuff. Like yeah, it's kind of the white Europeans, they're not really keeping their ethnicity going or anything. It just seems like they don't really care. I don't know what that is, but oh yeah, people can understand the Korean. it's like they're like, okay, that's definitely from me. They were saying I was being mean, but I wasn't. I was being very nice. What I'm supposed to be in America, be nice. American English, it's kind of like a lot of idiom usage. I mean, the British people use idioms too. It's called a figure of speech, but they don't really say figure of speech literally. They say it in a way that you understand that it's a figure of speech. That's the English figure of speech. The American figure of speech, they will literally say figure of speech. Or like they'll use idioms to fit the situation, but the idiom has nothing to do with what's going on. But that's what that means. That's what the idiom means. But it's kind of like what's an idiom? It's like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? So that means like when somebody says like, oh, like I finally got my paycheck, but my friend still owes me like money or like whatever. Then they'll be like, a bird in a hand is worth two in the bush. Because they're like, oh, it means like you actually, one's guaranteed and the other two is like, I don't know when you're gonna get that. You know, you might have to just let that one go. That kind of stuff. Even though like that's what that idiom means, but that's not really what's happening in that situation, but that's what they'll be saying. That's American English, whereas British English would be like, yeah, that's just that's what that means. Like that person would be like, Brent has one two in the bush, that's why they're saying that, and they'd be like, oh, you're right. But also letting them know what's going on in their life, but that's kind of like so general and applicable to anybody. So it's kind of I mean, it's kind of hard to say that they're saying anything just to begin with. It's kind of English way of speech. Yeah. What else is important? I'm literally starving to death. I have 3 packets of noodles left, and I have no money. I spent it all on paying off these idiots who literally just... Ah! Where is this ants coming from? Die! Anyway, they're just straight thugging, but I'm like, you guys haven't met actual thugs, okay? Please don't. Like, people want to be criminals, and I'm like, why do you want to be a criminal? Have you met criminals? Like, their parents do their best to keep them out of normal people things. Because they get into, like, criminal activities and all that kind of stuff, and they don't want their kids, or, like, even if it's, like, adopted kids or whatever, they don't want them getting into that, okay? They're like, if you get there, and then there's nobody else supervising you, and most likely there won't be, because most people don't do it that way, but you would, because you're a criminal. You're gonna end up in prison, okay? Or in a lot of debt, and people are gonna have to bail you out, and then until they can't bail you out anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I guess some people think that they're, like, marginalized in society, and they're oppressed, and it can get oppressive if you're a criminal. Definitely. I definitely get where they're coming from, where, like, it feels unfair, like, if life is unjust and all that kind of stuff, but it's, like, at the same time, they don't seem to be able to recognize that, like, they would be the type of person to do those things. You know, like, I know that they think they're being harmless, and sometimes it can be harmless, but at the end of the day, it's kind of not harmless, you know? It's not really something that you should be, like, not thinking things through with. And that's what they're good at, just making things and making decisions on the spot. Which can be a double-edged sword, right? Like, they're good at thinking on their feet, they're very quick thinkers, and they're good at making do with what they have, but at the same time, they don't really consider what other people are thinking or doing, and it's usually, it does hurt other people, you know? fun activity is not very wanted, you know? Not when something is desirable in a society. It's usually a bad sign, it's like waste, you know? I actually don't know what crime rate in Europe is like. I'm assuming that it's not considered a crime in Europe, even though it is criminal activity, based on the act and the reason as to why it was carried out. Yeah.
This Monday through Thursday, subway service on the portion of Line 1 between Finch
But
and
honestly, I think that's hard to get rid of because it's so like ingrained into their culture and language. It's like, how are you gonna try to like, are you gonna come up with a whole different language or something? It's kind of hard to do, say. But yeah. I feel so good because I'm sick. And I've been eating nothing but these. It's Indonesian. But where is it? What is this? Mee goreng. Oh, it's Malay. Yeah, it's Malaysian. It's halal. It's these ones. They're so cheap. Oh my god. It's like, what, 50 or 60, 70? I think it was like 69 cents per pack at the grocery stores. Some of them sell for 79 or 80 cents. And they're so much cheaper than, yeah, it's Indonesian. Oh my god. It was Malay, but it's Indonesian. It says product of Indonesia, manufactured by Indofood. Jakarta, Indonesia. Yeah. I thought it was Malay because I went to a Malaysian restaurant before and they had the same goreng stuff. But I'm starting to wonder if that was an Indonesian restaurant. Somebody had to tell me that this Chinese restaurant that they were supposed to be serving Canton food or Cantonese food. They told me that's actually Filipino food, and I was like, that's so weird. Why are they serving Filipino food and then say that's from Canton or Cantonese? Canton is a region in China or like a province in China. Each province has a very different set of cooking styles, so that's kind of how you can tell where the food's from, because there's like each region in China has their own cooking variants, and that's hard to replicate because the region has something to do with the climate and the temperature in that area, and then that's what kind of dictates what the food's available and what kind of seasoning they use, just because of the climate and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know how some things only grow in certain regions? That's what they're working with, and then seasonally and stuff like that. So that's how you can tell which area of China it's from. But they don't make that kind of food here because I've been to an actual Chinese restaurant where they serve like just Chinese food, and they'll only serve it to other Chinese people because apparently they get a lot of complaints from people who aren't Chinese because they can't or they don't really know what those spices are, and it upsets their stomach, or because their stomach isn't used to digesting those kinds of foods, like it does give them upset stomach or something like that. Like they get a lot of complaints and they don't get a lot of customers because people say it doesn't taste good or something. I think it tastes fine, but it's definitely not anything like American food. It's nothing like Korean food, and it's not Japanese style either. And it's like definitely fragrant, but it can be really fresh depending on the vegetables that they use. But it's not. I get that they may not like it. Yeah, I get that they may not like that kind of foods. It's not like it's an acquired taste is what I'm trying to say. Like unless you're a foodie, there's a lot of foodies in America, like people who really like different types of cuisines and like that actively look for things that don't taste like mainstream or something that tastes really regionally specific. Like unless you're a foodie or like you're actually from that region in China or something like that, like something that you can appreciate. A lot of people won't like it because they're not used to that kind of stuff. Um, I personally don't mind it, but I guess people consider me to be a foodie or whatever. What does it taste like? You know when you eat a bite into a whole ginger? Like if you had a ginger root, if you know what a ginger root is, most people have had. There's a lot of different types of ginger candies. There's ginger teas. People like to put ginger in their tea when they're sick. There's ginger based. A lot of foods are ginger based. You can like ferment it with ginger. If you get ginger root and then you bite into it, you know like that tang and then the flavor and it kind of like makes your eyes water a little bit and the freshness of the ginger root. That's what it's like to eat that kind of regional Chinese food. It's like a lot of flavor blasting in your face all at once. That's what that's like. If you ever had a chili pepper, like one of those small Thai chili peppers, I think label it as Thai chili peppers here. I don't know if it's Thai. Um, but they're like just small red chili peppers and they're really spicy, and then you put a little bit, like you break it up into little pieces and then you put it in just hot soup and you wait for a bit, and then the flavor, like the hot spicy flavor of the chili pepper seeps into the soup, and when you drink the soup you can taste it, especially like when you like chew on the chili pepper. It's like it's so spicy, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what their food's like. So you get like these little like peppercorns and added to some of them. That's usually the more mainstream ones when they like water it down or they try to make it as American as they can so most people can still eat it. That's not really Chinese, I gotta say. Yeah, again, a lot of people don't actually eat that kind of Chinese food here. They eat it back home in China, but they don't like have that kind of food here, I guess. I don't really know why people don't like that kind of food. I think it's good. But again, if you're not really into the whole flavor town thing, like if you don't really like those flavors, you like it when it's mild and you don't want to blast a flavor in your face, you're just like, oh my god, what is that? Then, yeah, probably stay away from Chinese food. But, it's kind of like Korean food. Korean food is like, wait, I'm gonna throw this out first. Okay, Korean food is like, it's a lot of it's fermented, but it's fermented vegetables. It's not really fermented meat. There's marinade on it. A lot of the times they like made it that way because like in Korea there's 4 seasons. In China, some regions don't have 4 seasons. They have mountains, so like it does get cold in the mountains, but like other than that, like in Korea there's 4 seasons and there's snow seasons, so they wanted food to last throughout the snowy seasons. So that's why they fermented a lot of it, and they dug a hole in the ground and then put the food in there so that it'll like last longer throughout the winter. So by the end of winter, like they can start gathering fruits and vegetables to be pickled to last throughout the summer, so that they can eat it during the winter, right? So like during the summertime, where the fermentation process begins, and then during the winter time, like it kind of like, it keeps it stable or whatever, I think. And then during the springtime, you can start eating, and then while you're eating, you can start working on your farming crops or whatever. I know it sounds like a video game. I think that's what that was. It's really heavy in this thing called umami, which is like savory flavor. It's a lot of it savory. There's these cold noodles. There's a lot of different types of cold noodles in Korea. I didn't know that was just a specific Korean thing. Apparently other countries don't have cold noodles. So it's when you have like those noodles, but it's served completely cold. Sometimes they even put ice in it to like make it sure that it's completely cold. It's just frozen. and you put pears in it, and you put beef in it, and it's a broth that you put in, and then you got some mustard on there.
Please wash and
And
sanitize your hands frequently and avoid touching your
it's
face.
called naengmyeon. It means like cold noodles, like bland
Please do your
noodles.
best to stay at least 2 meters.
They use buckwheat for those noodles. None of them is really wheat based. There's three wheat based noodles, but most of it's like soy based or buckwheat. This isn't really
We
wheat,
strongly
more
recommend
like rice
experts wear
based.
cloth masks or face coverings when traveling on the TTC.
Korean desserts. They do have Western desserts that are really good
For more
there.
information.
They follow the recipe to the T for the Western desserts, but other than that, like Korean themed, like actual Korean desserts are like rice cakes and really sweet drinks and sweet things made from fruits. So fruits are really sweet in Korea, and it's hard to eat like more than one of it at a time because it's so sweet. Like and they make a lot of drinks out of it. They make a lot of confectionaries out of it, but I haven't been able to find confectionery like Korean confectionery outside of Korea. That's specifically Korean. It's like a lot of it is rice based, so like pop rice or like rice cakes, so like pounded rice and stuff like that. There's like it's like rice cakes are really chewy and sticky, but it can get really sweet.
This Monday through Thursday, subway service on the portion of line 1 between Finch and Eglinton.
What else? Like
Due to track maintenance. Shuttle buses will run.
there's different types of like
for more information.
confectionaries is typically just like you know, you can have peanuts or different types of nuts in it, but it's covered with honey. But there's different types of honey, so they have like plum honey, and they have like, which means that they actually extracted sweets from the fruit, and then and there's also rice honey as in like they extracted the sweetness out of the rice and made sort of sweet syrup out of the rice. They make sweet syrup out of like plums. They make sweet syrups out of like other things, not just from honey. So that's how they make their confectionaries in Korea. It's just really sweet, really like it's really heavy, really flavorful, but it doesn't really last on your. There's not really an aftertaste. They do use a lot of garlic and onion in some of their foods. That's where they get all their flavor from. That's how you mask a lot of the flavors of like bad meats and like some kind of like iffy ingredients. They do have some sort of Korean foods here, but the only thing that they actually have here that tastes like or is like Korean food back in Korea are the street food that they serve as restaurant quality food or in the grocery stores that you can buy. It's street food. You can purchase it on the street in Korea, but it's not like there's nothing really fancy or special, but like I guess it's because street food is easier to keep than if you had like actual food. There's like so many different courses, but each course comes with like a bunch of different dishes, side dishes. There's like a little bowl of rice, and then there's a bunch of side dishes. So there's like kimchi. There's like different types of kimchi. It's just fermented cabbage, and then there's like sometimes they have potato salads, and then sometimes they have like green beans, like it's like seasoned green beans or like marinated green beans and marinated eggplants. They have roasted or grilled zucchinis with marinades on it, like all that kind of stuff. It sounds like they barbecued it, but they don't do barbecues in Korea. It's like cooked out of a kitchen. Old school Korean kitchens, they still have it in some of the temples in Korea. It's like this high. It's like really, it's like maybe half a meter from the ground, and they have like these really heavy metal pots that they put in specifically there, and then they have like a hole in the ground. Sometimes it's a little raised, so like the fire pit is just where the pot is, at the bottom of the pot is, and they still use fire logs to heat up the pot, and then the pot is supposed to cook all the rice and all the other foods in it. And then the rice, when it gets cooked in those metal pots, the outside of it has like because it gets hotter on near the pot than inside the farther away from the walls of the pot. So there's like this thing called like durungji. So it's like hardened cooked rice bits like outside near the walls of the pot, and then that's like you can take that out and then you can eat it later or something, but like the main rice is cooked inside. So like there's a crunchy outer layer of really cooked rice and then the inside layer of regular cooked rice. And then the monks told me that like I should eat those for snacks, like snack on those instead of like getting those like processed junk foods at convenience stores. It'd be a lot healthier. And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, I mean, it's not that great to eat that kind of stuff. You're just sitting at home and you just want to snack. And then, like, no, I completely agree with them. Like, I gain so much weight if I did that. Unless I was, like, living off of snacks, which is probably not a good thing. Uh, no, it was like, they still have those poles in Korea. And they have a lot of stews. People eat goat. I haven't seen Koreans eat lamb. I don't think that's a Seoul thing. Like from the city that I was from, I don't think anyone eats lamb there. There wasn't a lot of fresh fish, but they did have fish available. I went to an island. It's called Jeju. They had really fresh seafood. I've never even seen most of it before. They don't have that in Canada. It was just a specialty, local specialty in Jeju. And I was like, I've never seen it before in my life. Some of them I recognized, some of them were conches, and some of them were oysters, and some of them were clams. But those were they were not the same species that they sold here. So it was a completely different like plate of food that I'd never seen before, and it was so good and it was so fresh. And they weren't like most of it that they caught like from the fish. They have fishermen still living there just catching it. Sell it on the restaurants and stuff, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I never actually like, um, yeah, I don't know if people eat lamb. I'm sure some people do. I mean, I actually don't know. I've never had lamb in Korea, like not lamb. I had goats. They eat goats in Korea, but like I've never had lamb in Korea. Goat soup is so good. Goat stew. The thing with Korean stews and soups and stuff is that it's really clean, but it's like it's not heavy, but it's very flavorful, clean, and not heavy. So even if you're full during the time that you're eating, you're gonna be hungry like 2 or 3 hours later. There's not a lot of stuff in it, honestly. It's very light in calories too, but like it doesn't feel like it when you're eating it. You feel so light. I mean, it feels so heavy, but it's actually very light. Oh, a lot of tofu dishes in Seoul. They eat a lot of tofu. A lot of soy-based marinades, and a lot of chili pepper flakes based marinades. Yeah. But yeah, what is what? Okay, so what is it that is great about Korean food? I think it's the fact that it's not so no, calorie heavy. Calorie heavy. Calorie heavy. So it's not like it's so heavy in calories. It's really hard to gain weight off of Korean food. So unless you're eating like those processed junks and you're eating a lot of Western style or American style foods like fried rice and fried chickens and like those carbonated drinks and stuff like that, like processed junk foods, it's really hard to gain weight just from eating Korean food alone. Um, Also, it doesn't feel like you're eating that much. Like it's at least you get hungry enough after a few hours to be ready to eat your next meal. and people typically snack on fruits in between. Like anytime someone gets hungry, like they just cut up apples or get an orange out or something and they eat that. That's what Korean people usually do. Sometimes like, oh, what I really like, because when I didn't have that much money and stuff, I would get like rice cakes. So there's this specific type of rice cakes. There's karetak, and there's like just sungpyeon, and there's like this other kind of like diagonal like diamond shaped rice cakes, and they come in different colors. And each color is because of the different ingredients that they use. It's because they put additives in the flour, rice cake flour, like rice flour, so that they can stretch out the flour. But then it's not really stretching it out. It's to supplement the rice flour so that they can still continue to make more rice cakes out of just a small batch of rice flour. So they add different stuff in it, and they all have a slightly different texture and they taste slightly different. But my favorite was the greenish ones, and those greenish ones were like the ones had like kind of herby kind of stuff in it. There's the pink ones. I actually don't know what they put in the pink ones. There's a white one which is just rice flour. So like when they have enough of the rice flour ones and they don't have enough to make another batch, and that's when they start using supplements or additives to that stuff. And then they have like different ones. And then songpyeon is like, it's the same flour that they use, but instead of making like thick things of it, they just use a thin layer and then they cover it, and it's smaller. So like because it's a thinner layer, they can't stretch it out as much. They make it smaller, and they put like this really sweet. It's like toasted sesame seeds with sugar, and then they have some other stuff in it, and then they put it in there, and then they like roll it up, and then when you like grill it, or you can even boil it, when you eat it after it's cooked, it's like kind of melts in your mouth and it's really sweet. But like the sweetness isn't nauseatingly sweet, and it's not something you're gonna get sick of, and especially with the rice flour, it's hard to get sick of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what I remember with the Korean confectionaries. That's like what everybody ate in Korea when they're like kids and stuff. It's what I remember. Like I used to have that kind of stuff when I was a kid. I don't know if that's true for everyone, but that's what I had when I was a kid. Very traditional Korean stuff. Really traditional Korean stuff. What else? It's hard to get Korean food in America just because of the ingredients and the climate. It's really match. It's a little off, right? Like Korea's 4 seasons are blocked out in equal time lengths, but in America, not really. Right? Majority of it's winter, and then you get really short spring, and then short summer, and then short fall. So, in the northern regions of America, I don't know about the southern regions. I don't think it's like the same just because of the location difference, but it's very similar, kind of. What else? There's teas and drinks and stuff in Korea. Whatever they have in Europe, they'll have this, whatever it is in Korea, is just Korean version of it. I don't know what came first. I'm assuming it was in Korea first. And then some Europeans came to Korea, and then they like experienced or taste some of the stuff, and then they try to market it back in Europe. I don't know, that's what I'm assuming. I mean, this is again, I think Korea's been around for a lot longer than the entire European Union. So it's kind of, yeah. The capital of Korea is Seoul. I was before the division of North and South Korea. Yeah, it's 2 different countries. We swear to God. They're different because it's north and that's south.
Help stop the spread of
Yeah, they're
COVID-19.
different, and they even have
Please
different
wash and
flags and
sanitize your
everything.
hands frequently and avoid touching
Okay,
your face.
in the north, there's less people than the south, obviously.
This Sunday only, there will be no subway service on the portion of Line 1 between 5th and Edmonton Station due to track maintenance.
Oh,
Shuttle buses will
that's
run.
what I mean.
Visit ctc.ca for more information.
I know I look like I'm going to Starbucks. My head hurts because I'm sick.
This
That's
Sunday
why I'm
only,
sad.
Line 3 will be closed for track work and maintenance. Shuttle buses will run.
You see, the problem is that in Korea, like, things exist and people know about it. I really miss Korean food because that's the only thing that, like, that's the only reason that I actually, like, not the only reason actually. I think people outside of Korea who can't speak Korean and don't understand language is like stupid. Because most people in Korea speak more than one language, and most people in America, to be fair, speak more than one language. But like, there's such a difference between those two languages, English and Korean, Japanese and Korean, and like Chinese and Korean, and all that kind of stuff, Spanish and Korean, and like, it's just like structurally and grammatically completely different that it's like easier to comprehend. English or languages just in general, it's kind of hard to talk to people who understand languages. What's the point of communication? I don't know. Yeah. What's Korean food like? Oh my god, what's wrong with that guy? But it's what that's like. It's like very full heavy meal, but except like it's not actually calorie heavy. So it's hard to like work out on Korean food, kind of. Like you'll get really dizzy and you get really like lightheaded. It's like if you're doing some really heavy loaded work, that's when the rice cakes and the honeys come in. It's really calorie heavy. But a lot of Korean people don't like eating that kind of stuff. Just cause it's like you get so sick of it after a while, just to begin with, and like just because like of the diet that people are used to, like it's just after you eat more than one of it, you just kind of don't want to eat anymore. But like you have to force yourself to eat that kind of stuff more and more, even though it's like most people consider a treat. I know in Europe and in America they will love eating that all day every day, but in Korea people don't really like eating that too much. Like it's just you're not supposed to eat that much of it, and it's supposed to eat like very little of it, and it's one's pretty much fine. Like it's not like that in um, the Americas and Europe. Also, with Korean side dishes, like they have this like they use a lot of artificial flavoring and preservatives to ship a lot of the products over to America and possibly Europe. But they don't need to do that in Korea, and because they don't use the artificial stuff, especially if when you go to restaurants, there's like this special kind of I saw it. It was ginseng. They have ginseng soju, sort of. It's like there's so many different types of specialty liquor only available in Korea because they have to ferment it and make it in that specific brewery, and they're the ones who have the recipes for it. And they're not really because if they wanted to manufacture it outside of Korea, they're gonna have to pay a lot of tariffs and go through all that regulations, on top of being able to like ship the products out without it actually getting ruined or spoiling in the process. And some of the liquors it's impossible to do that with because of the recipe that they're making. It's fine if you like consume it there in Korea, but if you try to ship it over, because of the time and the like they can't control the temperature and the climate that it gets shipped over in, so it ends up being spoiled during the process. That's why people don't like to ship every product. They ship what they can, the ones that they will stabilize and mimics the flavor of what it's supposed to be. That's what they're shipping out. But otherwise, like, other than that, like, it's kind of hard to get the actual Korean stuff. It's not expensive. at all. But it can get expensive with the whole shipping and everything. There's like this ginseng liquor in Korea, and there's like these really like specialty restaurants, and there's like specialty like samgyetang. So samgyetang, it's like 3-dog stew. That's what that sounds like. Sam means 3, ke means dog, and tang means stew. 3-dog stew. It's actually spelled with 3. I don't know what ke is supposed to be. I think it's like crab or something, or like something else. I don't know. And then tang is a stew thing. Made a thing. I don't know. 3 thing. That is one of the specialties in Korea, and that's like it's chicken soup, but it's really like.
This Monday through Thursday, subway service on a portion of Line 1 between Finch and Eglinton.
I know you're trying to call me out saying that was being mean, but I was like, why would I want to marry an unemployed loser? Please answer me. Yeah, that's what I want to do, is marry some guy who's gonna sit on his ass all day and just yell at me because he doesn't feel good about the fact that he's unemployed. Maybe you feel like shit about yourself because you're unemployed and you haven't had a job. Maybe that's the problem, you know? Oh, that sucks, man. Anyway. Yeah, so that kind of stuff is really, really awesome. I put it up like there because it was like really like good. The point is, okay, Korean food is really good, and there's no substitute for it, honestly. You can't substitute Korean food, it's so good. Like, you know it's Korean. Why is it so hard for people to, like, find Korean food outside of Korea? I don't, like I said, just cause, like, no other shows, like, they're not really willing to move. I said, like, I don't really want to move anymore. I don't know why you gotta do this. Why can't you just go to Korea and eat the food there instead of like forcing them to go over there and work for you? That's fucking stupid. Also illegal, and it's a violation of my human rights, and also you're gonna get in debt because of it. I was like, this is stupid. Well, you think you're rich or something? I think they want to feel like they're wealthy, but it's not really wealth. It's like they're on drugs. Honestly. Clearly what that is, they're on drugs. They're drug addicts. Anyway, what else about Korea do I need to mention? The food is really great. People are very, very accepting. Not really, they're kind. And they are very, there's a guy who molested me and then was now stalking me. His name is Mike Cobb or something. And then he's like, he's not following me around and calling the police. Yeah, he's stalking me and he's calling the cops on me while he's stalking me and telling the cops that I'm harassing him. And I'm like, I don't even know this guy. Like, he's a criminal. Like, there's something wrong with this guy. And then they're like coming up to me and harassing me. Like, I'm not talking to him. I didn't even know he was stalking me. And I don't know why they keep saying that. That's so weird. I don't know why they believe it, because they have narcissistic personality disorder. They're mentally ill, so that's why they think it's normal. And it makes sense to them when he said that kind of stuff. That makes no sense to me. Like, well, that's a bunch of idiots running around trying to look like they're not stupid. This is convincing to anyone. It's gonna be really bad. I feel really sick. Oh, I'm supposed to call someone.